welcome. And thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for asking. It's my pleasure.
When I first heard you speak, which was, I don't know, nearly 2 years ago, I guess, at a big event, I never forgot what you said. One of the things that is really, really like valuable to me is about leading with love and kindness.
Yeah.
And that was your message that day. And I was thinking about speakers, I was just like, got to get done, got to get done. And you felt exactly the same, didn't you? Like as soon as I messaged you, you were like, yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
I'm
in,
in.
I'm in. So I heard your story, I read your book, but tell us, about the start of your business journey, because it did start with love, didn't it?
It did. It's always because of a boy, isn't it? Am I allowed to swear?
Of course you can,
Okay,
yes.
motherfuckers. So, met H when we were very young, and he was a martial arts instructor. But I think to take a step before that, my parents and my grandparents had businesses. So I think when you've been raised in an environment, my dad was an engineer, very traditional business with a handshake. I mean, he's in his mid-80s now, so we're going back a very long time ago, and that kind of ethos of reputation and doing what you say, and that good wholesome stuff. Mum was naturally entrepreneurial, definitely not a woman of her time. She could sell sand to an Arab and she'd make a profit out of a granny if she could. So that sort of combination of traditional, solid, wholesome business, but that flair and fearlessness that mum kind of pumped into me and my sister. And we were raised that actually being female was an advantage.
I know, and that really surprised me when we had that conversation on the phone, because I grew up with mantras from my mom saying, I wish I'd been born a man.
Right.
And so different. So it was so refreshing to talk to you, to hear that your mom actually has contributed
Yeah.
to a lot of.
I think it's only been since I've been a lot older, retrospectively, that it really impacts how important it is to spread certain messages to women in particular, because we've inherited so much on the belief system level. Fortunately, I was raised by somebody who told me that I could rule the world because I was a woman, that we could do, anything that we wanted to do. So, but it's only sort of now when I'm a lot older because that was my normal, right? So
You didn't realise the rest
no,
of
of
us women have
course,
been brought up so differently.
of course, and H was a martial arts instructor. He had a corporate job. He hated it, and so it was natural for me to say to him, "Well, let's set up a full-time martial arts business," which terrified him. That wasn't his upbringing, but when you've been brought up around business, that's a natural progression, and so that's what we did. And again, where the female thing comes in, I'm the only woman in the country and possibly Europe that does my job. The peers that I have are quite old boy network. But this is where mindset is everything, because everybody who did the job that I do were men. They were martial arts instructors. They'd been in, a training environment, a martial arts environment for many, many decades. And they were all men. But when I saw that, being naturally entrepreneurial, and you see holes in industries, you see opportunities. So it made perfect sense to me to conclude that, well, they're all old boy network men who train. I'm a woman who doesn't, so clearly I'll do a better job. I must be more qualified than them because they're doing a shit job and I'm not going to. So, but how? I mean, we can laugh about that now. Sort of. I'm nearly 60. It's many years ago. Who knew that having that mentality was so powerful? Because again, it's your normal if that's the way you see things. And I had a little bit of pushback when I first started. So what I saw was that martial arts instructors weren't treated well, and that they needed an organisation that broke the mould, that gave an alternative, that did things in a better way. So that's what I did.
I think that's so important though, because that's where I think that us as women, as bosses, as leaders, can make so much difference
Yeah, yeah, for
to
sure.
people's lives in
Yeah.
terms of making sure that they are looked after.
I think that, well, we've spoken often enough. 99% of my customer base are men. It would be terrible of me to not sort of appreciate the fact that I work with so many men, and I love doing so. But I do feel strongly that to empower one group of people, in the case that we're talking about today, women, it shouldn't be detrimental to anybody else. It doesn't have to be.
Absolutely not.
It's
Absolutely.
a complementary. It's complementary.
It is, yeah. Our success shouldn't be at the detriment of anybody else.
Nobody else.
And
No.
I know we've had this conversation. I said like, just because we want to be strong and powerful and successful doesn't mean to say we want to emasculate men. I want strong men.
Well, yeah, but here's the interesting thing. I think because I walked into a male-dominated space, um, elevated to a leadership position very quickly without knowing what the hell I was doing. Of course, we were making it
But
up.
you said yes before you were ready.
Yeah. So what I think women are great at is faith, because we're used to especially our age group. If you look at the way our mums, that our mother's generation were the first to sort of fight for equal pay, and some of them couldn't even vote. Like, their pensions would go into their husband's bank account, and you think about some of those things now,
Unbelievable.
but it's
Yeah.
only our parents' generation that was.
Yeah.
So I think even when you've been raised by a strong woman and you've got that insight to equality that I did, that wasn't stereotypical of Middle England in the 70s. And then, of course, the 80s, you had the whole yuppie thing. You got to stand the pressure. You got to be tough. You've got to sleep your way to the top. You've got to decide not to have children. You've got to do all of those things to climb the corporate ladder. And it's not actually true. But we didn't know that. But I think what women are very good at is change and adaptability, because our survival system is different to a man's. So we can instinctively pick up sometimes when things are not safe, and all the rest of it. But part of that feminine package is that intuition to nurture, and to be intuitive, and to see things slightly differently. And it's just about us owning that. And actually, what I find interesting, and I have to be really
Yeah, not seeing it as a weakness, I think. Yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So in the same way, well, that's exactly what I did. I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't suffer fools. I mean, I'm quite blunt, I think, by reputation. However, it just means don't be an arsehole. Like, if you're an arsehole,
Simple.
well, I mean,
You're
really.
not welcome.
Well, you are, but you're going to cry when I finish
Yeah.
with you. But
You're going to
you're
realise
going to
you
realise,
are.
we're going to have a
Yes.
conversation about it. But but I didn't see being a female as a negative thing. I saw it as a positive thing. If all of these men have been doing these for all the 30, 40 years, which is approximately how long that industry was alive in our country, I suppose, with any success. I gave myself permission to walk into a room as the only female, truly believing that I was going to be taken on my credit and accepted, because what why wouldn't you? That sounds so arrogant, but look at that, how we translate that as a female. We're scared to say that. We're scared to walk into a room and actually command that attention based on our. I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I knew I was right. I could feel it in my belly. We're instinctive creatures, and I just knew what I was doing. I didn't know what that looked like entirely. So what I did when I first started the business was just open up a website before the website it was slightly different. We didn't really have websites, but when I launched it with the amount of services that we've got, what I did was open everything and kind of just let's chuck as much spaghetti at the wall and see what sticks, and refine from there. So it wasn't about, I didn't decide to, oh, let's do this small bit first and see how it goes. I did all of it. And then through metrics and good business acumen, what's working, what's making a profit, let's just double down on that.
Yeah.
But it starts with us as human beings deciding to decide that we're good with who we are, and know that we know our shit.
Yeah.
And
Accepting it. Yeah.
and walking into a room. It's not weakness to say, I don't know what I'm doing, but I'll figure it out. It's not weakness to say,
It's strength, actually, isn't it?
yeah, for
It's
sure.
so easy to pretend that everything's great and we know everything.
But
It's
equally, I
actually
think there's a lot of apology that women make. I'm not going to apologise for knowing, 30, however many years ago, that I knew what I was doing, because clearly I did. Like, I was right. And like, what does that make me a bad human being by going, well, I knew I was right and actually I was? Like, does that make me a bad
No, because
person?
but this is the thing, isn't it? Is that, as you say,
Yeah.
so many of us women, we are apologetic, and we have to stop this, because the thing is, right, you were really good at that. It doesn't mean to say that you're saying I'm good at every single other thing, but
I'm
actually
dreadful at some
taking,
things.
yeah, so am I. I can't cook for the life of me. But
The biggest irony, my business takes all the administration jobs. We do all the admin stuff for martial arts instructors and compliance, and I am the shittest human being at admin.
well, so am I as well.
I'm really bad at it, and my whole service actually.
There's a few people in here who will tell you how bad I am. But that's it. Like, we have to get to the stage where we're not bashful about owning our genius and recognizing the role that can play in the world and in other people's lives. It doesn't mean to say that we shouldn't see that as boasting, should we?
I think we don't celebrate ourselves enough sometimes. I don't think we're comfortable.
But do you think it's because that when we stand out and we step up and we own that greatness in us, that there's somebody behind us ready to pull us down? So, we had this conversation. I had this conversation with probably most of you in this room about the fact that there's so many women who, if you seem to rise above them, are right behind you, ready to tear you down. And so does that stop women then from owning their greatness, owning their true potential by stepping up and standing out? Obviously, it didn't with you.
I was in a mainly male space, and to be completely honest, I think there's been a lot of women that I've struggled to connect with. When I was young, I was too tall and hot for a lot of women. I know that's like,
No,
you
but
know,
that's
that,
what we're talking about,
like,
isn't
you know,
it?
that girl jealousy stuff, which made no sense in my, like, how can you be cross at me because I've got really long legs I was born with, I couldn't help it. Like, I'm really sorry that's, but, and somewhere along the line there was some compassion. I mean, I've sworn at people, obviously, at times, and not
I don't believe that, Dawn.
necessarily accepted the BS. But as long as I'm allowed to have a strop first, and then after I've had a strop, and licked my wounds a bit, because it is rejection, it's female rejection, isn't it? And that hurts us.
It really hurts.
But then you have to step into compassion. And I think that's where you recognise the quality and the massive influence and the big impact of being filled up with confidence from a strong female, which was my mom. You can then, and it doesn't take much to dig and scrape the surface. If someone's being a mean girl, and they're jealous about what you've got, what you've achieved, well, even in any situation, if I'm jealous of somebody else or envious, if any of us are envious, it's because we can recognize that somebody's doing something that we actually want to do.
Or
And
achieve something we
yeah,
want. Yeah.
and we're probably more irritated with ourselves, but it's much easier sometimes to lash out at somebody else. And I make it really easy to lash out with me because I'm opinionated and I own that, and I'm loud and I swear and I don't care very much what people think particularly. So when you do take up your space, the reason why I think it's not easy to do is that you have to have concrete boots on for when a little bit of storm might come, when there is some envy or some jealousy, or actually you've just pissed somebody off because you're opinionated, you know. And I think in leadership, you have to in running your own business, you have to get into leadership. Even if you've got a really small community of 75 people, you're in a leadership position of that.
And recognize there's a difference.
Right.
I think that
And,
leadership is different.
in order for you to be able to deal with that, you have to be able to lead yourself first. And that means putting on some concrete boots sometimes and standing strong. And it starts with being able to look at yourself in the mirror first. Like, can I sleep at night? You know, decision making, is it good for me, my team, my customers, and the universe? Yeah, it's usually a yes or a no. And just be brave enough to stand in those concrete boots. And this is where feminine is amazing, because you've got push and pull, haven't you, in business? And masculine's very push. We've got to push ourselves, we've got to, you know, and persuade and strategy. And I'm a strategist and I love strategy. But there's some stuff before that. And I think with women, it's about trusting yourself. And we're so good at it. Like, if I asked any woman here, what's your gut feeling about what's your gut feeling about this podcast? It wouldn't take you your guts. What do your guts tell you? And it's that female intuition that is so magical and so brilliant that I don't care what Instagram says. It fucking works. So, like, you know, I loved what Tara was saying, because every time I try and do normal marketing, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
Like, it doesn't. Why is that? Because we're not being authentic. We're doing what other people think, and women are just so brilliant at instinct and guts and being able to adapt. And if we go back to sort of caveman days and what's in our DNA, and we talk about belief system being in our DNA and inherited beliefs, let's go back to Boadicea and cavemen, cave women. I mean, can you imagine? We used to have to, like, men would go off for months and we'd bloody give birth and it would practically kill us because we didn't have any help. Like, can you imagine being in those days? And then we had to figure out how to navigate to find berries and wood, and then we had to communicate that to each other so that if while I'm off getting berries and I get killed, there's somebody in the camp that knows the route to, like, that is spectacular survival. Like, it's sophisticated, and it's we don't have the physical strength, but how many times does the hairs go up on the back of your neck? How many times do you meet somebody who looks like a really nice human being, but you just get a funny feeling? We have got this incredible sense. And when we apply that to business and we combine that with the systems and the strategy and all the rest of it, women are absolutely phenomenal.
I think, yeah, we are. I think the thing is, though, is that so many of us are spending so much time in our heads, and that's where we have this disconnect with our bodies. And
Yeah, go to your heart.
so yeah, to
What's
me,
in your heart?
it is about, like, truly reconnecting with what's true for us, our hearts into our bodies. And yeah, and then I think you can feel what's right, and I think what you're saying is just so important, because when you're saying, like, the hard things that you've had to deal with, and sometimes being blunt and, telling people whatever. The fact is you're still staying true to yourself. You're not
Right.
doing it to be nasty. And I think that is the
Well,
one of, well,
sometimes
don't say
when the
that.
hormones are a little bit.
Yeah.
No, I
No,
mean,
but
I mean, I'm making light of that.
yeah.
I've got a quick mouth, and I do sometimes I have to apologise occasionally, but I'll only apologise if I mean it. Because if I meant to piss you off, then I mean it, and I'm not going to say sorry. I'm going to tell you, no, I meant it. But again, it is owning that thing. But if I did anything to upset somebody accidentally, then we owe an apology. And again, that's not weakness. That's love and heartfelt, isn't it? And I think we have to make different decisions. I've got 4 children. I've raised 4 children. I'm a wife. I've not employed a cleaner. I've done all of the domestic thing as well. And even that's interesting because I was raised, even though I was raised with a woman who didn't necessarily box women into that, there was always an identity association with me as being a good mom meant the cooking and the cleaning and and I probably did more of that than what I should have done to compensate for the fact that I also ran businesses, probably. And now I'm really bitter and twisted and resentful, and there's a million of them, and they're all married, and there's grandchildren. And now when I cook, it's like feeding the 5,000. And I don't want to do it anymore because I've done it for years, So,
You see, I
but
never learned that part,
yeah,
I was taught it, but it's just like, no, I'm not having it.
yeah, it's great strategy,
I
isn't it?
burnt
Crack cup.
toast.
Yeah, great. Because no, somebody else will pick it up. Yeah, that's where I
They
went
will,
wrong. I
yeah.
tried to do it well.
Yes, yes.
But yeah, just like I think what we need to do is just redefine good and bad. Is there any such thing? It's like everything works, but not for everyone. What works for you? What makes you feel happy and fulfilled? I think constant happiness is probably a fallacy. I think there's ups and downs, and you know emotional things, and people get ill or die, or you get a rough patch financially, or your husband pisses you off, one of your kids piss you off, or life, and it almost doesn't matter what those details are because we all have a version of that. And a great question to ask when we're going through conflict or adversity is how do I want to experience this? What out of this is going to define me? And then, of course, what you've got is the next generation. And do we have, I believe we do we have a moral and ethical obligation as females who've inherited beliefs and, we know what we know about being a woman? Do we have a moral and ethical obligation to the next generation to make that easier for them and to empower them? And I don't know of a single example of anybody that's ever been empowered in any way, shape or form by blaming something external. It has to come from within.
Yeah, exactly. You've got to
And
take personal responsibility.
if we don't trailblaze, because what we're talking about here is giving ourselves permission to be ourselves. I mean, we're actually like, if you just giving yourself permission to be yourself, it sounds such a minuscule thing.
No, but it's not.
But it's not.
It's not, because right from a young age, we've been taught about who we should be, what we should do. And I think some of the greatest work that I do with my clients is actually getting them back into an alignment with who they are.
Yeah.
So before, when people come to me and they say, I want to do this and I want to do that, and it has to go back to that alignment, because most people have completely lost a sense of who they actually are. What is it that you really like? Who actually are you? What actually are your values? Because we're surrounded by so much stuff, and we're told by so many people, do this, do it that way. And before you know it, you think you are that person. And it's only when you normally have a shake-up or something that and you start doing this work, that it's like, yeah, it's got to be in alignment, hasn't it?
It has. Okay, I've come to I've come to a funny place with personal development. I love personal development. I love psychology. Always have done. But I think I did my own head in for a while, where I think by going, it's a fine line, isn't it? Personal development's great. Mindset's key to everything in life. Relationship, the relationship you have with yourself, other people. Like it's just the pinnacle. But I think, and this is what my first book was about. Really, was what if before we embark on personal development, which is somebody else's program, philosophy, whatever. What if you just trusted yourself first? What if you found who you were first? What if you just did what you wanted first? And then I think what happens is, the right programs and the right peer groups and the right things come to you when you know yourself. Well, you and I were a classic example. I actually remember, I don't accept everybody on Facebook without looking at their profile. And I can remember clicking on your profile and, oh, she looks really cool, and accepting a friend. But this was a couple of years ago. Wouldn't have remembered her name, wouldn't have remembered who, But then when you messaged me for this, and I'm like, oh my God, I remember accepting this friend, that was it. So there was just in my belly, without even speaking to you, without even really understanding anything about you particularly.
You said yes straight away.
I just said yes, but because she'd said enough that she was doing this amazing event that was, and there was something in the energy through your eyes on your photo. That's what you didn't need words. I didn't even probably read any of your words, probably.
To be ages.
I know. No, but isn't that interesting though, that when we're looking to find our ideal customer or our peer group or a friendship group, that online digitally, I could see in your eyes that we'd get on.
Oh,
Isn't that no? But that,
but it
how
is so
simple
true.
is
But that's
that?
because you're in alignment. I'm in alignment.
Right.
And yeah.
So how much easier would life be if we just
Found our inner selves.
stopped being,
Yeah.
stop shit talking ourselves.
Yeah.
And
Just gave up ourselves permission to be ourselves.
Permission to be ourselves. That's it.
Dawn, you've been amazing. Thank you so much for giving us your time. And I don't know about you guys, but I'm blown away by some of those ideas, some of those thoughts. So everybody, please join me.